Hey everyone, today we're going to dive into something pretty wild, an ancient movement that literally reshaped the world by leaving it behind. We're talking about the incredible, world-changing story of Christian monasticism. And right away, you have to ask the big question, right? I mean, think about it. You're living in an age of huge empires, bustling cities, all this commerce. Why on earth would thousands of people just up and leave? I'm talking abandon everything. Family, money, society itself, just to go live a life of extreme solitude out in the middle of a desert? You know, when we think of a monk today, we probably picture this really peaceful, quiet retreat, a gentle, contemplative life. But the reality, back then, whoa, it was the exact opposite. This wasn't some calm spiritual getaway. This was an intense, all-out spiritual struggle. It was a radical, hardcore rejection of a society they believed had just completely lost its way. So who were these people? Who were the pioneers who made this, frankly, unbelievable choice? Let's dive in and meet the very first monk. The core idea driving them had a name: asceticism. And listen, this was not just about giving up a few luxuries, okay? This was a deep, profound belief that to really find God, you had to completely conquer your body and all its desires. It meant intense self-discipline, basically stripping your life down to the absolute bare essentials, spiritually speaking. Every big movement has that one person who kicks it all off, right? For monasticism, that person was St. Anthony the Great, and his story is just incredible. He came from a life of wealth, of privilege, and he just gave it all up for something radically simple. We're talking late 3rd century. This young guy from Egypt gives away his entire inheritance, walks out into the desert, and just dedicates his whole life to prayer and solitude. Of course, he became a total living legend. And this quote here, it just perfectly captures why they did it. There was this powerful feeling that civilization itself, society, had become a wall blocking you from spiritual truth. The cities, they were seen as noisy, corrupt, full of distractions. But the desert, that stark, empty silence, that was seen as the one place you could have a truly pure, unfiltered encounter with God. So this whole solitary lifestyle, it actually got a name that came right from the landscape that inspired it: eremitic monasticism. It's from the Greek word for desert, eremos. Makes sense, right? This was the life of a hermit, kind of like a spiritual warrior out there, fighting their personal demons all alone. And just look at this timeline. It shows you how unbelievably fast this radical idea caught fire. You start in the late 3rd century with one guy, St. Anthony, but then boom, within a single generation, you have thousands of hermits living in the deserts of Egypt and Syria. And by the middle of the 4th century, it's a massive spiritual movement, spreading like wildfire across the entire Roman Empire. Just incredible. Okay, but as you can probably imagine, living all by yourself in a harsh desert, well, it had its own dangers. And I'm not just talking about the physical stuff, but spiritual dangers too. So the movement had to adapt. It had to evolve if it was going to survive and keep growing. And this led them to ask a really crucial question. Is being totally isolated the only way? Is it even the best way? I mean, what about the dangers of things like pride or falling into despair or even just becoming delusional when you have absolutely no one there to guide you or, check you if you're going off the rails? And that's where our next key player comes in, Saint Pachomius. Now, this guy was a former Roman soldier, so he knew a thing or two about discipline, order, and the power of working together as a unit. He looked at the struggles these hermits were facing and had a breakthrough idea. What if community was actually a strength? What if it could offer supports, accountability, and some much-needed structure? And just like that, a whole new form of monasticism was born: cenobitic monasticism. The name literally comes from the Greek words for common life. So instead of that lonely, solitary struggle, the focus shifted completely. Now it was all about a shared, disciplined life together inside the walls of a monastery. You can really see the difference here, side by side. The old, solitary, eremitic model, that was all about the individual's personal struggle. But this new, communal, cenobitic model, well, that offered shared discipline and, crucially, mutual support. It basically swapped the danger of just going it alone with the stability and strength of a shared set of rules. So now we've got these two models, the solitary and the communal. But as the movement started spreading into Western Europe, it really needed a single adaptable blueprint. a kind of user's manual to truly take root and flourish. And that brings us to what is arguably the single most important document in the entire history of monasticism. So, in the 6th century, an Italian monk named Benedict of Nursia sits down and writes that exact blueprint. His guide, which is just known as the Rule, was an absolute masterpiece. It was packed with both spiritual and practical wisdom. And the key thing was, it wasn't about that extreme punishing stuff. It was all about balance, moderation, and a really deep, humane understanding of what makes people tick. And right at the heart of his rule is this famous motto, ora et labora. It's Latin, and it means prayer and work. That's it. Just 2 simple words that became the absolute bedrock for all of Western monasticism. It created this perfect rhythm for life that was both holy and productive. And what's so cool about this is how you can see that balance broken down. A monk's day was super structured, but look at this. Manual labor. Working in the fields, copying books, building things. It was given just as much weight as formal prayer and worship. That's huge. It grounded their whole spiritual life in something practical and real. And making this commitment really came down to taking 3 foundational vows. First up, poverty. You had to give up all your personal possessions. Second, chastity, a commitment to celibacy. And third, and this is a big one, obedience. You had to submit your own will to the leader of the monastery, the abbot, and to the community's rule. So, okay. You have to ask, what was the point of all this? What did it all achieve? The really crucial question is, how did these communities, which were literally built on the idea of rejecting the world, end up completely and fundamentally transforming it? And right there, that's the great paradox of monasticism. It's just wild when you think about it. This whole movement was founded as an escape from civilization, but it ended up becoming one of the most powerful forces in shaping Western civilization. How does that happen? Well, here's how it happened. After the Roman Empire collapsed, everything was chaos, right? And in the middle of all that, these organized, isolated monasteries were some of the only stable places left. So they became these unlikely guardians of progress. In their libraries, their scriptoriums, they were busy preserving all this ancient knowledge that would have been lost. Out in their fields, they were developing new farming techniques. They set up the very first hospitals, the first orphanages. They became these incredible hubs of the economy, of art, of learning. Basically, they were the vital centers that carried civilization through the Dark Ages. And that kind of brings us to a final thought, something for our own super connected, super noisy time. Those monks, they fled the distractions of their world because they were looking for something deeper. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our world of constant notifications and an endless flood of information, what can we learn from their search for sacred solitude? What's the value of that today?